So
it's okay.
So I'm gonna apologize right now for all of the later cursing. So again, if that's something that offends you, get out.
Hell out.
Okay. Crossplay is when you dress as you cosplay a character of the opposite sex and role play them as the male or female they are, depending on which one you're doing. Femplay, or gender bending, I call it when a guy does it bro play. This is like femplay, bro play. I think that sounds legit. But gender bending is where you take a character of the opposite sex and make them into the sex you are. So like, if I was going to do a femme Tony, for one, I probably wouldn't have the facial hair. Yeah, I actually had someone the other night be like, oh, are you doing a femme Tony? I'm like, no. If so, I should probably shave. But just in general, for those of you who aren't very experienced with crossplayers, you are better off assuming crossplay over gender bending, unless it's really, really obvious. Because some people will get super offended. Like me, I just explain it, I'll just be like, oh, like I get it with my Setso a lot. But I'll just be like, oh no, I'm not doing a female Kaiba, I'm just crossplaying. But some people will get super on your ass if they're crossplaying and you call them a femplay. So unless it's very obvious they're changing the character's sex, like they're wearing a skirt, or it's more of a very they have feminine or masculine traits to it that would normally be there, then you're fine. But always assume crossplay, and they'll correct you if it's not. So did that explanation clear things up for the few of you who didn't know the difference? The big thing is just the role play aspect. If you're a female and you're cosplaying Tony Stark, when you're cross-playing, you act as if you are a male Tony Stark. If you're femme-playing, I would be acting like a female version of him. If you guys have questions or topics you want me to cover, please ask. And other than that, I'll just ramble, and you guys don't want that. But I prefer to answer the questions you guys actually have than just talk endlessly. So, is there anything you guys would like me to start with right now? Yes?
How would a female make her face more masculine? Is there special makeup techniques?
There are special makeup techniques. I don't use them because they take hours to apply, even after doing your makeup. Like if you're gonna be if you're transgender, like in your daily life, then it'd be worth knowing. But at con, you're probably gonna spend at least 3 hours a day doing your makeup for something that nobody is going to notice, except maybe cosmetologists would notice. And to me, that's skewed priorities. I don't want to waste 3 hours of a con doing makeup unless we're going to notice. And for me, even if I did that makeup, the second I talked, people would know I'm a woman. So, what's really... but there are plenty of tutorials online that could tell you in great specific detail on how to do it, if that's something you decide is for you. But just from my perspective and all the years I've done cons, I've had people come up and say that they've used it, and I couldn't tell at all that they were. Like, they still were very much their gender in the face. And if you're androgynous anyway, then just putting on the costume will probably be good enough. But if you're extremely female or extremely masculine, no amount of makeup is going to do much more than just slightly diminish that. So, like I said, there's plenty of stuff online. I would recommend, like, YouTube tutorials so you can actually see, instead of just going, like, by a step-by-step. By the way, if there's anything I talk about in the panel that you don't agree with, do it. I'm just giving advice, my personal advice that I've gained through the years of cosplaying via my friends or myself. But if you don't like it, that's fine. You're not cosplaying for me. You're cosplaying for you. So if there's anything you don't agree with, do it. I don't care. Yes.
Do you have any tips to girls cosplaying as Mia's subset, for example, with binding and combat? Because it's hard to
okay, well this is actually a good time to touch on binding as a whole. I don't, and a lot of people don't actually believe binding is necessary. A lot of the professional cosplayers, and the air quotes are used because you actually have to be paid regularly to be a professional at something. A lot of the professional cross-players will tell you that you have to bind. But they don't ever tell you the risks that come with binding. The biggest one is, at least once per con, we will have someone go to the hospital because they bound incorrectly and passed out. If you are binding, you have to severely limit what you can and can't do. Like, you could not play any interactive game because it's compressing your rib cage. You cannot breathe to your fullest extent when you're bound. It's like wearing a corset all day. Another thing with binding is it actually kills the tissue in your breasts, which will make them sag earlier in your life. I know at least 7 girls who bound all through high school for their cosplays, who now at 23 look like they have the breasts of a 40-year-old.
Don't kill the titties.
To me, being slightly flatter is not worth that. Another thing, if you're any bigger than a B, you are never going to get down enough to where it doesn't look like you have boobs. And I mean a small B. And if you're a small B/A, why bother binding anyway? Just wear slightly looser shirts and a sports bra. But the big thing is, nobody really cares except elitists, and elitists are douchebags. They will find some reason to hate you no matter how perfect your costume is, no matter how well you bound, they're going to find some reason to bitch. So why should you try to please them? But most people honestly don't care. I don't, and I'm also kind of morally against binding, because I just find it offensive that I have to change the way my body's made because someone else decided I can't crossplay without it. You wouldn't, we don't all, change our skin color for cosplay. That would be, people would be super offended by that. So I don't see why I should have to bind.
So please yourself is long and short of that. Tony Stark is always important.
Who else should I bother pleasing? Brucey. I love Brucey. But really what it comes down to is no one cares if you're bound or not. But if you want to do it, there's plenty of tips online. I just plead you, if you are going to bind, spend the money and get a compression vest. Because it is the safest way to bind, but it still has the same risks that all binding has. Cosplaying in general pretty much causes you to overheat. If you want to get a little flatter, that's fine. Just get a sports bra a little bit too small. But don't go more than like a size too small or you're going to hurt yourself. And I mean, there are things you can do just to flatten, like buy a men's compression vest. And that will like take things and make them more like this.
It's not snake effects.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit more of a pec shape. Obviously, you'll still have boobs, especially if you're a C or a D or larger. You're still obviously going to have boobs, but it smooths them out in a more of a shape. And if you're wearing a looser clothes, like in my Seto Kaiba, you really can't tell that I have boobs. You can still tell I'm a woman, which goes back to binding really isn't all that important because I'm pretty much flat-chested as Seto, and I'm still very much a woman in the face and in my voice. Yeah. So, I mean, there's things you can do to make the breast less noticeable, but ultimately, it's really not important. Everyone's here to have fun. No one's going to be like, your costume would be perfect if I couldn't tell you had boobies. And if they do, be like, stop staring at my chest, you weirdo. No one cares. That's what it comes down to. Nobody cares.
I care.
You're a douche.
I care. Save your boobs.
Yeah, he would rather you not bind.
Do not bind.
For the good of breasts
Save
everywhere.
your breasts, and then let me look at them.
But yeah, ultimately, like I said, nobody cares. If it's something you want to do for your cosplaying, do it. But don't let yourself be pressured into thinking you have to do it, because crosplayers won't accept you if you don't. Like I currently, as my profile picture, have a picture of me as Stark spread out on a table, and I'm not binding at all. And because of the angle of the picture and everything, everyone was like, "Holy fuck, Erica, who is that guy as your profile picture?" And then they realized. So there's things you can do. I was actually wearing this shirt in the picture, and so there's a bunch of things you can do. Wear looser clothes, wear body slimmers, like that you can buy from Walmart. That's what I wear in a Seto Kaiba, and it kind of pulls the breasts apart and flattens them a little bit, and makes them really unnoticeable under my cloak. So there's a bunch of things you could do that's not damaging.